Welcome back to the Net to Net podcast. I'm your host, Skelt, and today it's an NFL edition. It's my mock draft 2.0 following the combine. I'm talking about what teams need post combine and pre-pro day workouts, as well as needs they need before free agency starts. Free agency starts on the 12th. That's where teams can go out and sign people, because the new league started, so there was a lot of cuts. We saw the likes of Joey Bosa, the likes of James Bradbury, Harold Landry. So there's a lot of people that got cut to save money within the cap. So we'll also preview what teams needs are now pre-free agency and post the combine, because some people had very good combines, some people had very bad combines. Some people didn't participate, so we'll dive into all that stuff. So right now, we start this. So I think with the first overall pick, the Tennessee Titans are up. I think there is a chance that the Tennessee Titans trade their pick. I wouldn't be surprised if they move down in the draft, because there are the likes of, they can go out and get a Sam Darnold, a Justin Fields, a Jameis Winston as a bridge quarterback if they don't like any of these quarterbacks going into the draft. I know last draft, I ended up having the Titans. Since I don't do trades, having the Titans, I believe they selected in my mock draft 1.0. They selected. Wait 1 second. They selected with the first pick. I had them taking Travis Hunter. So now, looking at what their needs are, that's edge rush. So that sets them up, because I don't do trades in my mock drafts, because that's too many complicated things that factor into a trading and factor into the thing. I'm going with Abdul Carter. He comes in, slots right in, and replaces Harold Landry as an edge rusher. They get younger, cheaper contract. Harold Landry comes in, or Abdul Carter comes in, and we saw what he did at Penn State. He's a freak of nature. He's just an unbelievable. I think he has the upside to be better than the likes of Micah Parsons. He has the potential. He is that player that he can play all four downs. He can be a disruptor. I think in Tennessee they need to go. They're going to go through a rebuild. They're going to go through issues. I think they need a quarterback, which that will come. It's either Brian Callahan wants to give Will Levis another shot, or get him a veteran quarterback to have like a little mentor under. I think that's where we're looking for, where they would be looking at. But the problem is, you have to get him weapons, and unfortunately, Titans don't have the weapons outside of Charles Okoro and Calvin Ridley. So that's the problem. I would think the Giants have a chance of trading up with the Titans to go get that quarterback. But Abdul Carter, he's a big win. Great edge rusher. If you watch the tape, he looks phenomenal. Going to Cleveland now, they need a lot of things. And they need a quarterback. They need a lot. They need an edge rusher to replace Myles Garrett, who recently came out and said that he is could sit out multiple games if he doesn't get traded. I know last mock draft 1.0, I had the Browns taking Abdul Carter, which Travis Hunter went 1. I think here Travis Hunter is a no-brainer. I think whoever you have at quarterback, you need help. With the Browns trading away Amari Cooper last year, shows that they don't really have those players that can help your quarterback. You need those skill positions. David Njoku's on the other side, almost on the other side of 30. Nick Chubb's a free agent. Who knows if he'll be back? You do have Jerome Ford, but he's been very injury prone. I think, again, right here, you could go quarterback. The quarterback class this year, it goes Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and then it kind of drops off to the second-tier quarterbacks, which we get into what I got into last week with the quarterbacks. It's not a strong class. If you wait till next year, you have the likes of Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, you have Dante Moore, you have these quarterbacks next year that are going to be, I think, a better draft class than expected. This class, again, is kind of weak. It kind of reminds me of the Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones draft class. It was just a weak class. So in this case, I think they don't pass up on a generational talent. I think Travis Hunter goes second. Here, quarterback, obviously, I had Cam Ward going to the Giants. I think that stays the same. I think he's the first quarterback off the board. I think he's what you've seen from him, the mechanics. Yes, people are going to say Cam Ward didn't play really anyone great. He has 0 wins against top 25 opponents. He might have some character issues, but the same thing is for Shedeur Sanders. Character issues maybe, comes off arrogant, comes off cocky, but he is confident. So I think Cam Ward here, yes, I'm not ruling out the Giants going after a bridge quarterback in free agency to give Cam Ward some competition. I wouldn't rule them out going out. I know they wanted Matthew Stafford. They are been linked to, in recent days, Aaron Rodgers leading up to the free agency period starting. But I still think Cam Ward, you need to find that franchise quarterback. You're going to get, if you bring in an Aaron Rodgers or a Jameis Winston, they're only going to be a quarterback, your starter, if anything, your starter for a year at most. So you need to have that franchise quarterback in place. Cam Ward, what we saw out of him from Miami was amazing. One of the best seasons from him for transferring for 3 different schools, showing why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Like I said, he goes from Inkart Wood and then transfers to He transfers to Washington State, has 2 great seasons there, and then comes to Miami, throws for 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and then he also ran for 4. So he threw for over 4,000 yards. Liked what I saw from him. Cam Ward, I think he's the best quarterback in the country, and I think Giants take Cam Ward. With the 4th overall pick, I had in my 1.0, I had the Patriots taking Terod McMillan. I do like Terod McMillan. I think he is a guy that you can't really miss out on, but I also do think they need offensive line and edge rusher. Mike Vrabel, he's a defensive coach. I think he finds I could see him finding his next Vince Wilfork and Mason Graham on the D line because that's really what they need. You have Christian Barmore. You have you are potentially using Gotchin. You don't really have that edge rush outside with trading away Uche, trading away guys like that. So, but I do think they need help to help Drake May. They don't really have the receiving core. I think Mason Graham, you couldn't go wrong going here on Mason Graham. But I think right here you go Terod McMillan to give Drake May some help. We saw what Drake May could do. He just needs the help. Jacksonville is on the clock next. They need a lot. They ended up trading away Christian Kirk for a 7th-round pick, 2026 to Houston. kind of helps Houston with their receiving problems, which I'll get into a little bit later. This is a perfect opportunity to take Mason Graham. I had him. I had them taking Calvin Banks with the offensive line. What we saw from Mason and in college, he was a disruptor. He's a guy that can stop the run. I like Mason going to Jacksonville in my second. I think that's a notable change of this. Las Vegas Raiders. They need quarterback. They need running back. They need DB. They ended up trading Geno Smith for Geno Smith. So, with them getting Geno Smith, I still think they could go quarterback, but Pete Carroll gets Geno Smith back. They've had success with him. He had his comeback season with Pete Carroll as the coach. I like what they did. I think here they go running back, or I think they go offensive tackle. I wouldn't be surprised if they go Will Campbell here or Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty, my first mock draft, I thought he would fall to Dallas. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to fall, especially now that the Raiders have a quarterback. They need a running back. They need to replace. They haven't replaced Josh Jacobs from letting him leave to Green Bay last year. They get Aston Genty. It's a no-brainer. He's a stud. He's the best running back in the country. We saw he probably should have won the Heisman if Travis Hunter was not on that. Unfortunately, Travis Hunter was on that podium, and he played both ways. If he wasn't on that podium, Ashton Genty should have won it. He had a phenomenal season, breaking Barry Sanders records, scoring unbelievable amount of touchdowns, and they weren't just like punches; they were like huge runs. So what we saw from Ashton Genty last season was amazing. He's very good reader of the game. He can see the field perfectly. His vision, getting through the gaps, getting through the correct holes that he needs to get through. That his offensive line at Boise provided for him. Unfortunately, the team wasn't that talented enough to make a run in the playoffs, which we saw them lose to Penn State. But Genty, other than that, is still an unbelievable talent. The Jets, it's no brainer. They need a quarterback. Shador Sanders is there for the taking, and they get Shador goes to New York like he promised, but to the other team in New York. Carolina's up. Carolina, they are interesting. They again have, I think, with this um, mock draft, I believe I had Will Campbell, if I'm not mistaken. No, I had Luther Burton going to the Panthers to give Drake May some help. I think what we saw out of the class that worked out at the combine, I gotta give it to Shamar Stewart. He had a great combine. He impressed us. Yes, people are gonna be asking about the production that he had in college. 4.5 sacks throughout his college career. You forget he had Nick Scorton opposite of him last year. You had a Walter Nolan a couple years ago. You had these big name players, and Shamar is a big time player. He was a former 5-star. I just think what we saw at the combine, he's a freak athlete. You just got to get him with the right coaching and get him in the right situation to be able to produce what he can do. Shamar Stewart fits with Carolina. They need edge rushers. Here, again, I'm going edge rusher again back to back. You got to find a Cam Jordan successor. Michael Williams, yes, he is coming off. He did not participate at the combine. Yes, you don't have a lot. You don't have a lot of wiggle room in free agency to go out and bring back like a Chase Young, or go out and get a Joey Bosa or a Khalil Mack. You have to work with what you're given. Mikael Williams from Georgia, I think, fits the bill here. If he wasn't injured, he's probably one of the best pass rushers in this class. up there with Abdul Carter. He might not be the best, but he is one of the best. What we saw from him, 5 sacks last season, 2 forced fumbles. Yes, he's very productive. He's been very productive, and you think about him getting to the quarterback lot. This Georgia's always had great defensive ends and rushers, and he's just one of those other talented Georgia defensive ends. Him and Jalen Walker, 1-2 punch. But Mikael Williams fits the bill here. Now we're in Chicago. Chicago, I kind of thought that Chicago would get lucky and pick up Ashton Genty here. But again, this is a offensive. They need offensive tackle help. We saw what we saw, and for me, right here, this is a toss-up. It's either Will Campbell or Armand Mabu. Yes, the problem with Campbell is he is not a. He doesn't have the length at tackle. He is smaller arm length than some of these bigger tackles. And then what we saw from Mabuo, what for 332-pound offensive tackle, running a 4.9 40 time. That is impressive for Armand. But we talk about Will Campbell. Will Campbell has been unbelievable throughout college, not really letting up a sack during his starts. This is a toss-up because they need offensive tackle. You have Dale Wright on one side. You have Braxton Jones on the other side. You just traded for Joe Thuney, which you kind of got to steal. Yes, he's up there in age, but you ended up getting Joe Thuney for really nothing. You gave up a 6th-round pick in 2026, which is pretty nice. I know the Bears also got Jonah Jackson. So you really are pretty much shoring your offensive line because Caleb Williams was the most sacked quarterback last season. So this also helps because you still keep your pick and you didn't have to give it up. The Bears have now have an interesting draft because they still need offensive tackle. They still need a left tackle to shore up that side. I think you could go Will Campbell and move him inside. Joe Thuney could play center. I think that's really what Chicago is looking for, to have that inside presence. But you could also go outside. You have the likes of Daryl Wright, like I mentioned, Braxton Jones, who are out there. You are losing Tevin Jenkins, and there is a chance that you don't get him back now since they made those trades for Josiah Jackson and Joe Thuney, because they're probably going to let Tevin Jenkins walk. He had issues. Right here, I still think Will Campbell is the better shot than Mabu, but also Mabu slotting right into becoming the next Trent Williams successor is a no-brainer for me. What I talked about, it's a toss-up between him and Will Campbell as the next. I did in my first mock draft. Calvin Banks was the top offensive tackle. Unfortunately, he did not participate in the combine, which I was disappointed. Yes, he's coming off an injury, so he definitely needs to have a strong pro day, and we'll kind of reconvene after his pro day. But yeah, right now we are at Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys. I kind of thought that. Jackson Genty would fall to the Cowboys. Unfortunately, he didn't due to this mock draft. So that kind of opens it up for what the Cowboys need. Now, the Cowboys, they need a lot. They need a lot. With Genty being off the board, with kind of hurts. So now you're talking about they need receiver help. They need running back help. I think they can get a running back in the second round. They don't need to overpick here and overreach. They do need offensive line help now. Zach Martin retired. Do you go out and get a inside guard like a Tyler Booker or a Donovan Jackson or a Tate Rutledge? I think this class is so deep at offensive line, they really can afford to wait again. Same with running backs. You could wait till the second, third round to get a decently good running back. They need a receiver help. I think that with Tarot going first off the board, I think right here screams you go receiver, and they go out and get who I honestly think who had a great combine, who showed flashes, kind of rose up the board, is Matthew Golden. I think Matthew Golden here kind of fits what they can need. Also, I think a Luther Burton, they need something. They just need someone to help CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. I like Luther Burton here. It's a no-brainer. Matthew Golden was a good shout because of what he did in the combine. He looked very well, very good. I think he had put on more of a great performance that got him. Now we're thinking of him as a top receiver in this draft. Miami's on the board next. I have Calvin Banks going here as well at 13. Just he's fallen so much due to him not participating in the combine, him having been injured a lot this season. But this also gives you a successor to Teron Armstead, who is considering retirement, and they really don't have options outside of that. So they need center help if they don't bring Ryan Kelly back. They do need a tight end. This is where they could go. I think Tyler Warren, I think right here. Yes, he didn't participate in the pro day or in the combine, but he will participate at the pro day. I still think Tyler Warren's the best tight end in the country. And he slots in perfectly with Anthony Richardson. They have the receivers. They have the running back. They need that tight end help just to be able to dump it off to him. Tyler Warren is your guy. Atlanta, they need edge right here. Someone that had a great combine, James Pierce Jr. A lot of people said there was some character issue why he wasn't considered as one of the best edge rushers. What we saw from him put on a great show at the combine. I liked what I saw. And at the beginning of the year, we're talking about this guy as a top pick in the draft. He's a freak of nature. He's big, elusive. He can get to the quarterback quick. He gets pressure on the quarterback. And he could help with Atlanta, which they desperately probably need help since Vic Beasley left, and that was so long ago. All right, we're up to Arizona now. Arizona, they are here. They do need edge rusher again, but again, you could wait till free agency to go out and get edge rushers, which I'll talk about free agency after we go through this. We talk about a freak of nature who's been rising up, led the nation in sacks. Mike Green, he didn't participate in the combine due to being a hamstring injury. I still think he could be very good for an up-and-coming team like Arizona, and Mike Green kind of fits them. Cincinnati, where are we going here? Trey Hendricks could be asking for a trade, or is seeking a trade. We need defensive help. We need corners. We need defensive ends. We need linebackers. We need edge rushers. We just lost Sam Hubbard to retirement. Like I said, Trey Hendricks could be on his way up. BJ Hill is a free agent, so we don't have that run stopper. You could go Jalen Walker here at edge. Well, Kenneth Grant or Walter Nolan as a D-line help stop the run. You could go Derek Harmon. I think Derek Harmon would be a great pick here. I don't think you could go. You could do wrong here if you don't go defensive end. I still think. I think I like Kenneth Grant, but for me, I think the best defensive end in this class is Walter Nolan, and if he's out there, I go for him. It's not a bad shout to go him. Here with Seattle, do they are going after Sam Darnold? That is reported. They are going after Sam Darnold. Do I think they go quarterback then? If they didn't come out and say they're going after Sam Darnold or going to pursue Sam Darnold, I would have said Jackson Dart here. I think Jackson Dart is the third best quarterback in the class. Do I think they're going to go get Jackson Dart now? Maybe. But I think Sam Darnold could be the answer for them. So then you kind of pivot yourself to what they need. And they need offensive line help. And perfectly enough, Josh Simmons is out there. And Tyler Booker's out there. And so Josh Connolly's out there, which I think could be a great pick. I think the best tackle could have been in the class if he wasn't injured, Josh Simmons. I think Josh Simmons makes it to Seattle, and they get their franchise tackle opposite side of Charles Cross, because Charles Cross is coming into a contract year. One more year on his rookie deal. You go get Josh Simmons. He is there. Tampa Bay. Tampa. What can Tampa do? Tampa needs edge rushers. They need help. They need to find a successor to Vita Vea. Now, someone here, I think Jalen Walker or Kenneth Grant makes sense. I personally, in my mock draft 1.0, I went with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon had a phenomenal combine. And I think he kind of fits this mold of what he did at the combine. I think he's working his way up into the first round. But there are some, I just don't know. He's a powerful guy. I think that he could be something. But unfortunately, I still think Kenneth Grant is slightly better. And he could be the next successor of Vita Vea. Denver's on the clock now. I think this is really a no-brainer. They need tight end help. I had them take them last time, and he is still out there, Colson Loveland. But he was the main focal point of the Denver Broncos. Or, sorry, not Denver. Focal point for Michigan. They really didn't use their receiving core. They used Colson Loveland, but unfortunately, Colson Loveland was injured most this season, which kind of hurt his tracks off of why he wasn't the first tight end off the board. But I still think he can be productive enough with Bo Nix in that system. And then they can go get a running back in the free agency or in the draft later on. Pittsburgh's up. This is a no-brainer again. Steelers take Emeka Mbuka. I like him. I think, yes, Matthew Golden had a phenomenal combine, but I still think Emeka Mbuka, his maturity, his elite readiness for the NFL, what we saw him do at Ohio State, I just think fits the Steelers mold. And they need that second receiver. And I still think they could go out and get a receiver with a trade or via free agency to get that third one. Now, Los Angeles is on the clock. They need running backs because they released Gus Edwards. They released J.K. Dobbins might be not going to be back. They also need edge rusher because there's a potential loss of Mack and Bosa. I like Jalen Walker here. I think he's fallen enough. But, yeah. Green Bay, they need edge. They need corner. They need defensive back help. I think right here they take Jahad Barnes from Texas. He has risen up the board since the college football playoffs, since the combine. He won the Jim Thorpe Award. He can play DB, he can play safety, he can play in the slot, he can play on the outside. Jahad Barnes, I like what I saw from him. Will Johnson and Benjamin Morris, if they weren't injured, those are the number 1 and 2 cornerbacks in the country. But unfortunately, they were injured. They haven't participated. They didn't look great. Will Johnson didn't even participate in the combine, and then Benjamin Morris looked disappointing. So hopefully they have bounce back days at their pro days, but I gotta go Jahad Barnes. Minnesota. What can Minnesota do? Minnesota has a lot of options. They do need to find that successor to Harrison Smith, which honestly he has kind of passed Malik Stark as the number one safety, and I think what he did at this combine, he had a great day and a great performance. Nick Emorwari slots in right there. Houston's on the clock. They need now. This is interesting because they do need another receiver. They could be losing Stephon Diggs. Joe Mechie hasn't really shown to be a reliable receiver due to injury. No Tank Dell. He's out for a whole nother year. He's right there. I think Matthew Golden goes right there. The Rams, uh, they need offensive line help after getting rid of Josiah Jackson, but they also do need linebackers. They really need better linebackers, and this for me could have went either way. I think they go Jahad Campbell. He can line up as an edge rusher. He can line up in middle linebacker as a Mike. I think right here, this kind of signifies their need at linebacker since they got rid of Ernest. Since they got rid of him, Ernest, when they traded him to Tennessee, just blanking on his last name, but he was supposed to be that next heir to Bobby Wagner, but unfortunately, that didn't work out, and he ended up getting traded to Tennessee, which then he got traded again to Seattle. So, Ernest Jones got rerouted to Seattle. But yeah, I like that for Jahad. Jahad, what we saw from him, he's a freak of nature. He reminds me of kind of a mix of Reggie Evans and Deshaun Forrester, two Alabama linebackers, were pretty good. Baltimore, they just re-signed Ronnie Stanley, but I still think they could go offensive line. I would have had Ravens take John Simons. I do believe that had them taking Josh Simons the first time, but I think Josh Simons kind of depend on needs went a little bit earlier. But right here, Tyler Booker, I think stops falling, and it's not him falling for a bad reason. It's just the team's needs right now. And based off what they've been doing before free agency started and re-signing their players, really dictates how aggressive they be in the draft. Detroit is up. They need edge rusher. They need safety. They had a lot of injuries on the back end. In my mock draft 1.0, I had them take Nick Scorton, who looked like a freak of nature in college. I also think that could still be a thing, Nick Scorton, I think. But Donovan Uzuruku had a good combine, which that's why I'm leaning towards him. But I also can see they need someone to help Aiden Rush. Aiden. Now, as a rookie, didn't run the 40, but he did test very well every other position. I still do like Nick Scorton here. But someone that had a good combine that I feel like we're not really talking about is Jack Sawyer. He was that leader on the defense for Ohio State. I think he sneaks into the end of the first round. I could see him being a second round pick. That's why I like Jack Sawyer going to Detroit. Washington, they need back end help. It says they need receiver help. They don't need it anymore. They got Terry McLaurin. They got Debo for a fifth round pick. I think they re-signed Ami Brown. Right here is a no-brainer. I think they go best player available and they go Malik Stark. Buffalo. I had them taking Jack Sawyer in the first round. Here, I like Derek Harmon. I think they need to get someone else in there with Ed Oliver. Von Miller isn't guaranteed to come back, so I like that pick. With Kansas City, getting rid of Joe Tooney, getting probably a franchise tagging Trey Smith. It looks like, and the struggles from Kingsley Sutamalu, the rookie out of BYU last year, I think they go with a more ready offensive tackle in Josh Connerly. Josh Connerly out of Oregon, one of the best tackles in the country. Barely let in a sack. He's been a mainstay on that offensive line this year, so I like what he brings. And then to round out the last pick in the draft here, I honestly think they could go edge rusher here, and that's Uzuriki. You have Nick Scorton. Do they take a chance on Will Johnson with already having Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell? It's a possibility. You could upshore that edge. My thing is, yes, they're not going to be able to re-sign Milton Williams this free agency. They're not going to have the money. They could go edge rusher, but for them, I think someone that could fit the bill, that could give them a future, could also be a Donovan Jackson. You could find your successor to Lane Johnson to that offensive line. But still, I think edge rushers, you're possibly losing Josh Sweat. You were able to re-sign Zach Bonds, so linebacker isn't very key anymore. I'm going with Donovan Uzuriki. He had a great combine, like I mentioned. Just a phenomenal player, and he fits the bill. So that wraps up my mock draft 2.0 post combine. Now, preview the free agency now, we can turn our attention. So, there's been a lot of things happening yet. Quarterback wise, Sam Darnold is out there, Aaron Rodgers has the fields, Russell Wilson, just to name a few, could see themselves being picked up as those bridge quarterbacks, which I mentioned for some of those teams. They're looking at Pittsburgh, who needs a quarterback. Seattle, who needs a quarterback. Cleveland needs a quarterback. New York Jets and Giants need a quarterback. And like I said, this is a very weaker class. So it could be interesting that they go out and get a Russell Wilson or a Sam Darnold or an Aaron Rodgers for a year and then go get their quarterback of the future in 2026 draft. It'll be interesting to see where some of these guys go, like Aaron Rodgers. Does he have it still in the tank? Can Darnold have another year like he did this year? I know, yes, he struggled in the playoffs, but he had a phenomenal regular season. Running backs this year aren't as stacked. We have the likes of Najee Harris, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones. I think a lot of these guys are probably done in their home with their teams. I think Nick Chubb is about to move on. Najee Harris, I don't think, is probably not going back. Pittsburgh has a track history of never re-signing their running backs. We saw it at Willie Parker, Rashard Mendenhall, Jonathan Dwyer, Isaac Redmond, Le'Veon Bell. They don't like to pay their running backs. J.K. Dobbins is out there, who had a bounce back year after multiple injuries. Aaron Jones, 30 years old, still can produce what we saw in him. So it'll be interesting. The receiving core, T. Higgins just got franchise tagged again. Chris Godwin is the leading name with Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Amari Cooper. Again, there's a lot of teams that could use receivers, such as the Houston Texans, Pittsburgh Steelers, Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars. They all could use it. San Diego is another big one. It's a lot of older players. You're looking either late these or early. This really is kind of where you're looking at for most of these receivers outside of Josh Palmer and Daimi Brown. Tight ends, really, outside of Evan Ingram and Juwan Johnson, it's kind of not the best. I think tight end class is usually not as strong, but you also have guys in the draft I think could be better and younger. Offensive line, there is a good amount of offensive line help out there. Cam Robinson, Will Freeze, Mekhi Becton was a great story, and Philadelphia, Ryan Kelly and Josh Myers are very good, reliable centers. Tevin Jenkins is out there. Yes, he had an up and down season. Dan Moore showed pretty consistently as a left tackle for Pittsburgh. I don't think he goes back. But this free agency class is heavy on the defensive side. You talk about Milton Williams, who had a monster Super Bowl performance. You have Jonathan Allen, who just got released. Levi Usaru, Jonathan Hargrave. You have Poona Ford, B.J. Hill. These guys, and even Calais Campbell. You have guys that you can go get for a year or two to help make that playoff run if you're a contender, or get a mentor for your younger players. Edge rushing, you have DeMarcus Lawrence. Yes, DeMarcus Lawrence is coming off an injury season, but he's always been productive. Chase Young had a decent season. You have Hassan Riddick, who on his day is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. He's just coming off those injuries and those holdouts. Joey Bosa, Mack, Sweat. Look to see Joey Bosa. I could potentially see Joey Bosa going to San Francisco and playing with his brother. That's not a possibility. That is a possibility. Bengals. My Bengals could go out and go get a edge rusher like Bosa if Trey Hendricks is to leave. You have Aziz Ujulari, who is young. He's only 24 years old. He could give you some. Dio Odabingo from Indiana had a decent season this year. You talk about the linebackers. You got the likes of the veterans like Elon Roberts, Kendricks. You have Robert Spielline, and then you have Kazir White, Ernest Jones, Jamie Sherwood, who had a good season. Nick Bolton, 24 years old. Dre Greenlaw is just 2 years removed from his Super Bowl campaign where he played unbelievable until he got injured. This is a very good top heavy linebackers. You have Bolton, Greenwood, Sherwood is coming off a great season. You couldn't go wrong with having that replacement linebacker, especially with this class being what it is in the draft. Outside of that, the cornerback, you still have DJ Reed, who has had a good season in New York for the last few years. Travarius Ward, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Byron Murphy, Darius Slay. So Asante Samuel Jr., does he go back to LA? It'd be kind of cool to see him go to either New England or Philadelphia, like his dad. You have Nate Hobbs. You have Jordan Lewis. You have even Stephon Gilmore, who put up a solid season last year with Minnesota. Murphy, career high, 6 picks in 2024. He's looked a bounce back since leaving Arizona. I like him a lot. And then on the back end, you have I think probably one of the best safety classes that I've seen in a very long time from the last few years. Javon Holland. You have Trayvon Mooring. You have Fuvanga from San Francisco. You have Justin Reed coming out of KC. Cameron Bynum, who had a great year with Minnesota. Jeremy Chin put up good numbers with Washington. Julian Backman, Justin Simmons, Andre Cisco, Marcus Williams. I will say this class is very heavy on defensive players, just like how the draft is. But we've seen some players get extended. Ronnie Stanley resigns with Baltimore, which kind of shores up their left tackles. Zach Ertz and Mike Gesicki got their deals to go back to their respective teams, and the Commanders and the Bengals. Which the Bengals, I don't think if would have brought back Gesicki, they would have went. I think they would have went Tyler Warren in the draft. Hollywood Brown resigns with Kansas City. Like I mentioned, Geno Smith was traded to the Raiders for a third-round pick. Levante Davis and Terrell Bernard resign. I mentioned Harold Landry's. It's another linebacker who got released and still has some upside. Shaq Mason as a guard, he could come in as a good mentor and a bridge gap as well. Christian Kirk was traded to Houston, which shores up answers some of the needs on the tight end front or on the receiver front for Houston, but I still think they could get a little bit more. We saw Tutu Atwell get re-signed by Rams, kind of hinting at that. It's pretty much over for Cooper Kupp. He will be traded, so be on the watch out for that. We also did see Max Crosby get an extension to become the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Zach Bond got paid after his performance with the Eagles. So we're seeing a lot of teams reshoring their guys that had good seasons and then cutting cap to save money. The likes of Jamal Williams, Nick Bosa, James Bradbury to save their team money because some of these teams like the Saints and the Eagles and the Texans don't really have a lot of money to play with. So they have to cut a lot of salary to maybe bring in one or two players and then really focus on the draft. Free agency starts on the 12th. I can't wait to see what everybody does. Very exciting to see. And then the draft. Now we're looking at Pro Day, and then we're looking towards the NFL draft in a couple months. Let me know what you think. This is my Mock Draft 2.0 and free agency preview. Let me know what you guys think about my Mock Draft 2.0. let us know in the comments. Follow us on socials. Let us know if you want us to talk about your certain team. You should go like and subscribe. That'd be great for us to help build our channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But yeah, really appreciate it. I'll probably come out with a mock draft 3.0 after kind of during pro days / towards once free agency dies down, because usually within the first couple days, that's where all your big free agents will go, and then kind of helps kind of show what their needs are still remaining for the draft. That's why it's so hard to do mock drafts before free agency and the draft, because with the free agency, it's hard because they get all their needs kind of adjusted, and then what's left is the draft. So, hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys soon. Hopefully, we'll have some soccer and more NBA. I'm out soon. Peace.